These are business cards which were used by dragomans, tourist conductors and interpreters in Egypt and the Middle East in the late 19th and early 20th century. And a bit like business cards today, these acted as a way of giving information about someone's contact details and their position. And they were used by dragomans to advertise for clients, and so very often had mentions of previous illustrious clients they'd had or specialities that they offered. This one here, Elias Kilhami, was the dragoman for a number of quite famous figures within the history of Egyptology. He worked for Amelia Edwards, and he's mentioned several times in her 1877 book, A Thousand Miles Up the Nile. And he also worked with Henry Villiers Stewart, who was an Egyptologist and member of the Egypt Exploration Society, as well as a couple of quite prominent US politicians, one H.P. Baldwin, who was the ex-governor of Michigan, and another Whitelaw Reid, who subsequently went on to be a vice presidential candidate and then was the US ambassador to the United Kingdom. A lot of dragomans like Elias Kilhami were active in different areas at different seasons. From May until November, he worked in Beirut in Syria, and then in December until April, he was based at Shepherd's Hotel in Cairo, one of the most famous hotels in Cairo, where European and American visitors would spend the winter season. Most of these cards came into my possession through buying them online on auction sites or through finding them in second-hand bookshops. They're the kind of things that people who had travelled in the Middle East tended to bring back with them incidentally as little souvenirs or as things inside their guidebooks or phrase books. Sometimes we get pictures of the dragoman concerned. This one of Esau Modbek, the chief dragoman of the paddle steamer Ramesses, worked for Thomas Cook in the 1880s. And as you can see in the photograph, he's wearing medals because he had served in the Royal Navy. In the 1881 census, we find him serving as interpreter on a Royal Navy vessel in the Red Sea, which was doing a survey of the East African coast. Modbek was based in Cairo, but he was born in Jerusalem and seems also to have worked like Kilhami in Syria and Palestine. Sometimes we get more curious examples like this one of Ibrahim Hassan Muhammad, who also goes by the name Spud Murphy. Although I don't have a firm date for this, I think it's probably of the First or Second World War era, and it seems likely that the rather irreverent nickname he's got was given to him by clients, perhaps soldiers that he worked with, or people who had made him well enough known by this name that he wanted to advertise it on his cards alongside his portrait. He was based in Alexandria in Egypt, but as we can see, he also worked throughout Upper and Lower Egypt and as far as the Sudan, and also did Holy Land tours and camping in the desert. So these three men all seem to have worked across quite large geographical distances and cover a time period from the 1870s right up into the early 20th century.